Good morning from beautiful Brisbane, Australia. How are you this morning? And did you have a beautiful weekend? It's wonderful to be here with you. My name's Linda. I'm your certified trauma recovery coach. And we come along now 3 times a week because business is getting busier, and to share with you information to help you along your journey with complex PTSD, so that you can be empowered to take your one next step. We have a whole range of free resources. If you'd like the free resources, just comment free resources down below. If you're here for the first time, welcome. It's great to have you with me. Say g'day or do hashtag replay to let me know that you've watched the replay. And this morning, I want to share with you some really vital information, and it's called betrayal trauma. Now, I never knew that this was actually a very real thing until a friend of mine has been going through it. So I just want to get up the sheet so that I stay on track for you. And when I started to look into betrayal trauma, I was like, oh my goodness, this is so real. But not only is it real as in it happens, it's the impact of betrayal trauma is actually a known psychological impact on us. So it impacts our health, it impacts our ability to function, and it impacts our mental health in a very big way. So betrayal trauma is perpetrated by someone with whom we, or the victim, is close to and is relying on for support and survival. Good morning, girls. It's wonderful to be here with you this morning. Good morning, Ali, Suzanne. So I want you to think about any type of situation where you've trusted someone who's in a position of authority. So institutions. Sorry, somebody decided to ring me in the middle of a live video. Now, I want you to think about institutional betrayal is one of the big ones, all right? So it refers to the wrongdoings perpetrated by an institution through failing to prevent or appropriately respond to wrongdoings by individuals in their institution. And betrayal trauma happens when individuals, having experienced a traumatic event, place a great deal of trust in the institution to address their wrongs and their experience with disbelief, blame, and refusal of help. All right? So think about a situation where you go to a doctor, or even if you go to a hospital, so, it's a really big institution, and you put your faith and trust in the doctors that, what they're telling you is right, what's going to happen, and it doesn't happen, and then you go to the institution and you want it addressed, and they don't address the issue, all right? And that's when the betrayal trauma happens. Good morning, Michelle. Good morning, Laura. It's great to have you here. Okay, so, and you can get secondary betrayal trauma if the person who's addressing the issue fails to address it as well. All right, so other possible institutions, sorry about that, guys. Other possible institutions where betrayal trauma can happen include academic institutions, law enforcement, the military, healthcare systems, which we've talked about, mental health systems, so think about all the specialists in mental health, and religious institutions. And oftentimes they don't have not just the rules in place, but how to respond to the trauma. They don't have all the legislation in place on how to respond to it appropriately so that you don't become re-traumatized and the situation gets addressed. All right. So that's in the big picture. And closer to home is romantic betrayal. Now, I find this is really, really important that we understand this. Well, for me, it was really important that I wrap my mind around this. So initially, betrayal trauma was only recognised in the sense of if somebody committed infidelity, all right? But now, over the years, as obviously as time goes on and we've got a bit wiser, it now includes domestic violence. So where somebody that we're in an intimate relationship with, we are degraded, abused, humiliated, blamed, manipulated, and they attempt to control us by their words, by gaslighting. So saying one thing one moment, doing another thing another moment, and then pointing the finger at us and making out that we're the one with the issue. And we've all, not all, but a lot of us have been through that when we've had to leave relationships where we've been left with no choice because the other person won't address their stuff. And what I find interesting is that everybody gets online and becomes, pseudo-psychologists where, that's it, what's happening for you internally is your fault and it's not my fault. And so you're the one with the issue, not me. And then the other side of it is they'll turn around and say, you have to support me now because I have an internal issue. And it doesn't work like that. We're adults, all right? And when adults behave badly, and that's domestic violence is adults behaving badly, like they are making a conscious choice to behave badly, then we get to be an adult and we get to choose and say, I'm not going to submit myself to this repeated bad treatment, and I'm not going to allow my children to be constantly under the pressure of your bad treatment. And it's so important that we recognise this, that when adults behave badly continually, so we're not just talking about one-offs where we sit down and have a decent adult conversation about it, we're talking about when adults continue to behave badly repeatedly and do nothing to change their behaviour. And it's not just their attitude, it's their heart attitude to life, all right, that I need to address my stuff. Now, none of us get it right when we start addressing our stuff. We don't. But the thing is, if we're prepared to put in the effort, that makes a very big difference to the outcome of having healthy relationships, because we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about it and we're going to grow together and we're going to compromise and we're going to work through it, right? But if you've got somebody who's pointing the finger at you and saying you're the one with the issue and they're not addressing their part of the bad behaviour, then we don't stand a chance, all right? They're leaving us with no choice but to say, look, we can't go on like this, all right? So get professional help. Don't try to navigate betrayal trauma on your own, because if you do, then you run the risk of secondary trauma if you don't get help from people who understand the depth of how this can impact your physical, mental and emotional and spiritual health, okay? Now, it is possible to get an actual proper assessment done by a professional, somebody who specialises in betrayal trauma. That actually is questionnaires for betrayal trauma that you can get filled out so that you can gain clarity on what's happened for you and what's your one next step to move forward, okay? Don't do this on your own. All of this trauma happens in interpersonal relationships, so we need those interpersonal relationships to help heal as well, to help understand what's our one next step forward. And if you're in Australia and you've been watching the latest episodes of Maths, Married at First Sight, and if you're overseas and you haven't seen the Australian version, you need to. So if you can get a VPN, and then you can tune into Channel 9 now. My daughter does it. She's in Indonesia, so she got a VPN, so we sit and have a maths conversation. Well, actually, we sit there and voice message each other about the episodes. But here's the reason why. When the people are on there and they've got conflict and they're saying, but I don't know what my one next step is, all right? And some of those experts need to get a grip and start saying, how about this is your one next step? How about looking at this as your next step? You know, people are asking for help, all right? And we need help, and we need to seek professionals who understand and will speak up and say, you know, here's 3 options. See which one will fit into your personal life and how we can mold it to suit your own personal needs. So if you're watching Married at First Sight and you've got suggestions, maybe we all need to write into Channel 9 and say, hey, these people are crying out for help. They don't know what their one next step is. Let's get in and help them navigate relationships. And one of the reasons why, too, is when we're growing up, if we haven't faced these challenges in childhood, like we've never seen it, we've got no wiring at a brain level to know how to navigate the conflict, to know how to navigate the trauma. We just don't know. And so we've got to put in the time and effort to learn how we personally can navigate what's happening for us individually. All right. Now, Laura says a very deep topic that hits home with me, especially the medical trauma. And Laura, I hear you and I understand, and you're not alone. And if you're in group, feel welcome to write about it, because there are others in our group who have suffered medical trauma very, very severely. I mean, people say you can't, compare traumas, and it's not about comparing them. It's about saying that the impact on my life from this trauma has been severe. It's like saying, you can't compare what's happened for me with complex trauma to somebody else. But the impact of complex trauma on my life was severe. It stripped me of everything, every cognitive function. The actual traumas were different, but we need to be aware of what is this impact? How has this impacted my life? And then separate the trauma from our character and say, okay, yes, the impact is phenomenal, but I want to know and I want to seek out what is my one next step. What's the one thing that's driving me nuts at the moment? And how am I going to conquer it? And how am I going to break down the step-by-step process to conquer it? Okay? Now, thanks for joining in. There is a leaflet in the free resources. If you'd like the free resources, put free resources down below and I will give you the link to the free resources. We're at well over $500 worth of free resources in the library now, and it continues to grow. So, say g'day, let me know how you are, and above and beyond everything else, I want you to know you are loved and you belong, okay? You are loved right here, right now, and you belong. Have a most beautiful, beautiful day, and I will see you again tomorrow morning. And I think, no, that's the next day. I've forgotten tomorrow morning's subject, but look at the meme that's pinned to the top of the page. Because I've forgotten tomorrow morning's, because all the work's done and I've been working on the next day, which is more information about dissociation. Okay? Have a good one, and I will see you tomorrow morning. Bye for now.